Yo fam, before we jump in, hit the comments and tell me where you're tuning in from. I'm trying to see who's brave enough to hear this one. Marcus Webb, 52, lived so deep in the North Cascades, you'd think he was hiding from civilization itself. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, no noise, just him, the trees, and the silence. Dude's phone worked twice a month if he climbed a hill and prayed to the signal gods. But what happened out there, that's what'll mess with your head. Marcus wasn't always a mountain man, living like he stepped out of a Jack London novel. Nah, homie, used to work ER at Seattle General 12-hour shifts, blood chaos, saving lives while running on coffee and spite. He was good at it too. Real good. The kind of nurse who could start an IV in a moving ambulance during an earthquake while eating a sandwich. His co-workers called him Magic Marcus because somehow, someway his patients always pulled through. But that was before everything went sideways. Marcus had been married to Diana for 23 years. High school sweethearts turned life partners, the whole nine. She was a third-grade teacher with a laugh that could light up a whole damn room and a patience level that could handle 8-year-olds hopped up on birthday cake. They had their spot in Ballard little two-bedroom with a garden where Diana grew tomatoes that tasted like summer itself. Life was good, not perfect, whose life is, but good enough that Marcus went to bed grateful most nights. Then came the diagnosis. Stage 4. Pancreatic cancer. The kind that shows up late to the party and wrecks everything in sight. Diana fought it for 18 months. Chemoradiation, clinical trials. The whole nightmare. Marcus was right there, using every bit of his medical knowledge, calling in favors, researching treatments at 3 a.m. None of it mattered. Cancer didn't care that she was only 49, didn't care that she had students who loved her, didn't care that Marcus would have traded places in a heartbeat. She died on a Tuesday in March. Raining because Seattle's gonna Seattle, even when your world's ending. After the funeral, Marcus went back to work. Lasted 3 months. He'd be inserting a central line, or checking vitals, and suddenly he'd be somewhere else, remembering Diana's hospital room, her morphine pump, the sound of her last breath. One night he walked out mid-shift, drove home, and never went back. Sent his resignation via email like a coward, ignored the calls from his supervisor, his friends, his sister. 6 months later, he sold the house. Couldn't be there anymore. Everything reminded him of her. The kitchen, where they'd dance while cooking. The couch, where they'd binge-watch cooking shows and argue about which chef was full of shit. The garden with those damn tomatoes he couldn't bring himself to pick. Man took the money, bought a cabin way up in the Cascades near a place called Copper Ridge, and disappeared. The cabin was rough built in the 70s by some hippie who apparently thought insulation was optional and running water was for the weak. But it had 4 walls, a roof that mostly didn't leak, and it was 15 miles from the nearest human. Perfect. That was 2 years ago. Now Marcus was 52, living alone at 4,000 feet, and honestly, he'd found a rhythm. Wake up at dawn, chop wood, because the stove was hungry, and winter up here didn't play. Haul water from the creek because the well pump died, and he couldn't be bothered to fix it. Check the solar panels, make coffee that could strip paint, eat something that used to be food. Read books he'd gone through, maybe 200 in 2 years. Steinbeck McCarthy, random thrillers, whatever the library in Marblemount had when he made his monthly supply run. Dude was out here, living like it's 1823, and honestly, respect. The locals in Marblemount thought he was weird, but harmless. That's just Marcus, they'd say. The nurse who went mountain man. He'd show up once a month, buy supplies, rice beans, coffee, propane batteries, maybe exchange 5 words total, and disappear back up the logging road in his beat-to-shit 98 Tacoma that ran on prayer and duct tape. Marcus didn't mind being alone. Actually, he preferred it. No small talk, no, how are you holding up, no pity eyes, just him, the trees and the weather, trying to kill him 6 months out of the year. He'd made peace with it. Or so he told himself every night when the silence got too loud, and he'd pour an extra finger of whiskey to help him sleep. The cabin sat in a small clearing surrounded by old-growth forest Douglas firs and western red cedars that had been there since before America was even a concept. From his porch, Marcus could see down the valley across to the opposite ridge, where snow stayed year-round above 6,000 feet. It was beautiful in that way that makes you feel small and insignificant, which honestly was part of the appeal. He'd settled into routines because routines kept you sane when you lived alone. Morning coffee, breakfast, chop wood. Afternoon maintenance on whatever was broken, and something was always broken, or hiking to check his trail cameras. Yeah, he had trail cameras. Not for hunting, just curiosity. He liked seeing what wandered by when he wasn't looking. Deer, Elk, the occasional black bear, once a cougar that stared directly into the camera like it knew some shit Marcus didn't. Evening dinner, reading, whiskey sleep. Repeat until dead. But lately something had been off. It started small. Little things that didn't quite add up. His woodpile, which he kept neat and organized because old habits die hard, kept getting messed up. Not knocked over, just rearranged. Logs stacked different than how he'd left them. At first he figured it was a bear. They got curious, knocked shit around. No big deal. Then there were the tracks. Marcus had grown up hiking, knew how to identify animal tracks: deer, elk, bear, cougar, coyote. He'd seen them all. But these were something else entirely. He found the first set near the creek, pressed deep into the mud. Looked vaguely human, but way too big. Like way too big. 16 inches long, maybe more. 5 toes, but the proportions were wrong. Too wide, too deep. Whatever made them had to weigh 500, 600 pounds easy. The hell, he'd muttered, crouching down to get a better look. Took photos with his phone even though there was no signal to send them anywhere. Just documenting the way his nurse brain was trained to document everything. He followed the tracks along the creek for about 50 yards before they disappeared into the rocky stream bed. Didn't see them again that day, but he couldn't stop thinking about them. That night, sitting on his porch with his evening whiskey, he Googled giant footprints Washington Cascades on his laptop, using his spotty satellite internet that cost too much and delivered too little. The results? All Bigfoot shit. Forums, grainy photos, encounter stories that read like bad fiction. Marcus closed the laptop. Get real, he said to himself. Man had seen enough real shit in the ER stabbings, shootings, car accidents that turned people into abstract art that he didn't have energy for cryptid nonsense. But the tracks kept appearing. Next time was behind his cabin in the soft dirt near his garden, which was really just a pathetic collection of potato plants and some herbs that somehow survived despite his neglect. Same massive prints, same weird proportions. And they came right up to his window, like whatever it was had stood there looking in. Marcus checked his trail cameras. Nothing. Whatever it was, it knew where the cameras were and avoided them, which was unsettling. Animals didn't do that. Animals didn't give a shit about trail cameras. They'd walk right past them, sometimes stop and sniff them. Then came the branches. He was hiking one of his usual loops about 2 miles from the cabin when he noticed tree branches broken and twisted about 12 feet up. Not snapped by wind. Wind breaks branches sideways, makes them jagged. These were bent, twisted, some of them woven together into these weird X patterns. Territorial markers, maybe. But what animal does that? You know that vibe when someone's staring but you can't see him. Yeah, that. Marcus started getting that feeling every time he went outside. Like he was being watched. Not all the time, but often enough that it got under his skin. He'd be chopping wood and the hair on his neck would stand up. He'd spin around, scan the tree line. Nothing. Just shadows and silence. One night in late September, he heard something that made him set down his book and actually pay attention. Knocking sounds. Wood on wood echoing through the forest. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, 3 knocks again. It went on for maybe 5 minutes, then stopped. Marcus stood on his porch, listening. "Hello," he called out, feeling stupid. Nothing called back, just the wind through the cedars. He didn't sleep great that night. Kept his .45 on the nightstand, which he'd never done before. Told himself he was being paranoid, but paranoid people live longer when weird shit's happening. The knocking came again 2 nights later. Same pattern. 3 pause, 2 pause, 3. Marcus grabbed a flashlight and his pistol walked to the edge of his clearing. "I know you're out there," he said into the darkness. His voice sounded small against the forest. No response. Just those damn knocks echoing from somewhere he couldn't pinpoint. October rolled in and the weather turned. Temperatures dropped. Rain came harder and Marcus started prepping for winter, stocking up on firewood, checking his propane levels, making sure his generator was ready for when the solar panels became useless under cloud cover. He made his monthly run to Marble Mount, loaded up on supplies, avoided eye contact with everyone. The girl at the checkout counter, young thing with pink hair and too many piercings, tried to make conversation. "You hear about the hiker who went missing up near Copper Ridge?" Marcus looked up. "Nah." "Yeah, like 3 weeks ago. Search and rescue looked for a week, didn't find anything. Her car was still at the trailhead, though." She scanned his beans, his rice, his industrial-sized coffee container. You're up that way, right? You see anything weird? Everything's weird up there, Marcus said. Part of the charm. She laughed nervously. Right. Well, stay safe. He nodded, paid left. Didn't think about it again until he got home and saw more tracks. Fresh ones pressed into the mud near his porch. But this time, there were smaller tracks too. Kid-sized, maybe. 2 sets of them. The hell is going on? Marcus said out loud because talking to yourself was allowed when you lived alone. It was in the Mountain Man Handbook or whatever. He decided to stop ignoring it. That night, he pulled out his old nurse notebook, the kind he used to carry for patient notes, and started documenting everything. Dates, times, what he saw, what he heard. If something was happening, he was going to track it properly. Maybe he was losing his mind from isolation. Maybe there was a logical explanation. Either way, writing it down made it feel more manageable. October 12th. Found tracks by creek. 16+ inches. 5 toes. Deep impressions. October 15th. Wood knocking sounds. 3-2-3 pattern. Approximately 9:30 p.m. October 18th. Branches arranged in X pattern near North Trail. 12 feet high. October 21st. Feeling watched. Multiple times throughout day. Nothing visible. October 24th. Found smaller tracks near cabin. Child-sized. 2 sets. He read back through his notes and had to laugh at himself. Listen to yourself, man. You sound like one of those conspiracy theorists who thinks the moon landing was fake and birds are government drones. But the evidence was there. Something was in these woods. Something big. Something smart enough to avoid trail cameras. Something that was paying attention to him specifically. The first snow came early that year. Mid-November, a solid 6 inches overnight. Marcus woke up to that particular silence that comes with fresh snow. Everything muffled, the world holding its breath. He made coffee, looked out his window and froze. Tracks everywhere. Not just the big ones, those too, but dozens of prints all around his cabin. Different sizes. Like a whole group had surrounded his place while he slept. They came up to his windows, circled his woodpile, went to his shed and back. But nothing was disturbed. Nothing taken. Just inspected. And this is where Marcus had to make a choice that could have gone sideways real quick. He could pack up, leave, go back to civilization. Tell himself this was too weird, too much, that he was done playing mountain man. Or he could stay. See this through. Figure out what the hell was happening. Marcus stood on his porch, coffee steaming in the cold air, looking at those tracks, and made his choice. He went inside, got his notebook, and added another entry. November 14th. Multiple tracks. Many individuals. Surrounded cabin. No aggression. Just observation. Then he wrote something else. They're curious about me. Not threatening. Watching. Waiting for something. Marcus spent the rest of that day doing something he never thought he'd do, trying to communicate with whatever was out there. Felt stupid as hell, but he'd seen enough weird shit in his life that stupid was relative. He took some apples from his storage Honeycrisps he'd bought on his last supply run and set them out on his porch steps. Stepped back inside, watched through the window. Nothing happened for hours. He made lunch, read a few chapters of whatever Western he was working through, checked again. The apples were gone. Not knocked over, not scattered. Just gone. Taken carefully, leaving no trace, except for a single massive handprint in the snow, where something had reached for them. All right then, Marcus said. We're doing this. Next day, more apples. But this time he added some smoked jerky he'd made from deer meat, and a couple of those granola bars that tasted like cardboard, but lasted forever. Set them out in the same spot, went inside, waited. This time he saw movement. Just a shadow there, and gone impossibly fast for something that size. The food vanished. In its place, a smooth river stone and a pine cone arranged in a neat little stack. A gift. They're leaving me gifts. They're leaving me actual gifts. Marcus said it out loud, needed to hear how insane it sounded. But there was the evidence sitting on his porch, a rock and a pine cone that hadn't been there before. He picked them up, turned them over in his hands. The stone was smooth river-worn, the kind you find in creek beds after thousands of years of water polish. The pine cone was perfect symmetrical, no damage. These weren't random. These were chosen, placed deliberately. Marcus set them on his windowsill, started leaving food out every morning. Sometimes it was taken immediately. Sometimes it sat for hours. But it was always taken, and there was always something left in return. More stones. Interesting pieces of bark. Once a bird's feather so perfect, it looked fake. This went on for 2 weeks. A strange routine, Marcus leaving offerings, whatever was out there, accepting them, and reciprocating. No direct contact, just this weird exchange program happening at the edge of his porch. Diana would have loved this, he thought one night. She'd always been the adventurous one, the one who believed in magic and possibility. She'd read about Bigfoot sightings and get excited, plan camping trips to places where sightings had been reported. Marcus had always indulged her, figured it was harmless fun, never actually believed any of it. Now he didn't know what he believed. The winter storms came hard in late November. Temperature dropped to the teens, wind howling through the trees like it had a personal vendetta, snow piling up 3-4 feet deep. Marcus spent most of his time inside, keeping the fire going, reading, trying not to think too hard about his situation. He still left food out when he could get to the porch. Sometimes he couldn't, the snow drifted against his door, and he had to dig his way out. But he tried, and the food still disappeared, even in the worst weather. Then came December 3rd. Marcus woke up to something wrong. Couldn't put his finger on it at first, just that feeling in your gut that says, nah, something's off. He got up, made coffee, looked outside. The snow had stopped. Everything was white and still. But there at the edge of his clearing, standing in the early morning light, was something that made Marcus's brain short-circuit for a solid 10 seconds. A figure. Massive. Had to be 8, maybe 9 feet tall. Covered in dark brown fur that was almost black in places. Broad shoulders, arms that hung past its knees. A face that was not human. Not animal either. Something in between. It stood completely still, just watching his cabin. Holy shit, Marcus whispered. Holy actual shit. He wasn't scared, which surprised him. Should have been terrified. Should have been reaching for his gun, barricading the door, calling, "Who?" There was no one to call. No signal. No help, just him and whatever that thing was. But he wasn't scared. He was fascinated. Amazed, his ER brain kicked in, observing and cataloging details like he was documenting a patient. Height approximately 8 to 9 feet. Build muscular, broad-shouldered. Hair dark brown to black shaggy. Posture upright, bipedal, human-like, but different proportions. The creature shifted its weight, and Marcus could see its breath in the cold air. It was breathing hard, like it had been running or was stressed. Its eyes, Jesus, its eyes were looking directly at him through the window. Not aggressive, not threatening, worried. It lifted one massive arm and gestured. Not a wave, more like a beckoning motion. Come here. Follow me. Help. The universe said, bet let's test this human. Marcus stood there in his long johns and flannel shirt, coffee forgotten, trying to process what he was seeing. Every rational part of his brain said, stay inside. Lock the door. This isn't real. But something else, some deeper instinct said, this is exactly what you've been waiting for. The creature gestured again, more urgently this time. It was trying to communicate. It needed something, needed help. Marcus made a decision. He set down his coffee, pulled on his boots, his heavy coat, his gloves. Grabbed his first aid pack, because if something needed help, he was still a nurse, even if he'd quit the job. Opened the door and stepped onto his porch. The creature didn't move toward him. Didn't move away either. Just stood there, waiting, watching. You need help, Marcus called out. His voice sounded absurd, talking to a cryptid, like it was a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. The creature made a sound, deep resonance somewhere between a grunt and a hum. Then it turned and started walking toward the trees, but slowly, kept looking back, making sure Marcus was following. Every cell in their body screaming, hell no! But Marcus followed anyway. They moved through the forest, the creature ahead, Marcus behind both of them, crunching through snow that came up to Marcus's knees, but barely slowed the creature down. It moved with purpose, following what looked like a game trail that Marcus had never noticed before. They went maybe half a mile deeper into territory Marcus hadn't explored much, too steep, too rocky, too easy to break an ankle. The creature stopped at what looked like a natural shelter, an overhang of rock that created a shallow cave. It gestured toward the opening, then stepped aside. Marcus approached slowly. Inside the shelter, barely visible in the dim light, were 3 small figures huddled together. Young ones. Kids. Bigfoot children, if such a thing existed. And apparently it did, because Marcus was looking right at them. They looked sick. Even from the entrance, Marcus could see they were in rough shape. One was shivering despite the thick fur, another wasn't moving at all, and the third looked at him with eyes that were glazed and unfocused. "Shit," Marcus breathed. His nurse instincts kicked in immediately. Okay, let me look." He stepped into the shelter, slowly, hands visible, making himself small and non-threatening. The mother, because that's clearly what the big one was, a mother with sick kids, made a low sound. Not a growl, more like a whimper. She was scared, but desperate. Marcus knelt down next to the closest one. It was maybe 4 feet tall, covered in reddish-brown fur that was matted and dirty. Fever, he could feel the heat radiating off it. Dehydration, probably. And when he gently examined it, he found wounds. All 3 of them had wounds. Deep scratches and punctures that looked infected, festering, leaking that clear fluid that meant serious bacterial infection. "What happened to you guys?" Marcus muttered. He looked closer at the wounds. They were wrong. Not from fighting, not from an animal attack. These looked like trap injuries. Bear trap maybe, or snares. One of the little ones had a deep gash around its leg that looked like wire had cut through fur and skin got an infected spread. Humans did this. Somebody set traps, these kids got caught, got free but got hurt. And now they were dying from infection because their immune systems, however good they might be, couldn't fight off everything. Marcus looked at the mother. She was staring at him with an expression that transcended species. Every parent who'd ever brought a sick kid to the ER had that same look. Terror, hope, desperation, all mixed together. Please help. Please save them. I don't know what else to do. And this is where Marcus had to make a choice that could have gone sideways real quick. He could walk away. These weren't his responsibility. They weren't even supposed to exist. He could go back to his cabin, pretend this never happened, let nature take its course. Or he could do what he'd done for 25 years in the ER. Help, save lives, do the job regardless of whose life it was. "All right," Marcus said more to himself than to them. "All right, we're doing this. But we need to move them. Can't treat them here. Too cold, too dirty. They need warmth, antibiotics, IV fluids if I can manage it." The mother made that humming sound again, this one rising in pitch. A question. "My cabin," Marcus said, pointing back the way they'd come. "Warm, safe. I can help them there." He didn't know if she understood his words, but she understood his tone, his gestures. She moved to the smallest one, the one who hadn't moved at all, and carefully, so carefully lifted it, cradled it like the baby it was. Marcus picked up the one closest to him. It was heavier than it looked, maybe 80 pounds of dead weight. The kid barely responded, just made a weak sound that broke something in Marcus's chest. The third one, the biggest, tried to stand on its own but collapsed immediately. Okay, easy." Marcus helped it up, supported its weight. "We're gonna go slow." It took them an hour to get back to the cabin. Marcus, half carrying one, the mother carrying another, the third one trying to walk but stumbling every few steps. By the time they got to his clearing, Marcus was exhausted and sweating, despite the cold, and the mother looked ready to collapse. But they made it. Marcus got his door open. "Inside, come on." The mother hesitated at the threshold. "It's okay. Come on. They need warmth." She ducked through the door, had to bend almost double to fit, and Marcus realized this was probably the first time she'd ever been in a human structure. She looked around, confused and scared, holding her baby. "Here." Marcus cleared off his couch spread blankets. "Put them here, all 3. We need them together. Keep them warm." The mother laid her babies down on the couch. They barely moved. Marcus got to work. First warmth. He stoked the fire, got it roaring, pulled out every blanket he owned, piled them on and around the kids. The cabin temperature was already climbing, and the shivering from the ones who could shiver started to ease. Second assessment. Marcus examined each one properly, the way he'd assess patients in the ER. All 3 had fevers, high ones, probably 104, 105. All 3 were dehydrated lips, dry eyes, sunken. All 3 had infected wounds. 2 had injuries that looked like snare wire cuts, deep and nasty. The third, the smallest one, had what looked like a compound fracture in its left arm that had been healing wrong for weeks, and now was infected at the break site. "Jesus Christ," Marcus muttered. "How long have they been like this?" The mother made a sound. Low, mournful. A long time. Too long. Third treatment plan. This was going to be rough. He didn't have access to IV antibiotics, no way to do blood work, no X-ray machine, nothing you'd normally use to treat severe infections. But he had his old ER supply kit that he'd kept couldn't quite throw away. Oral antibiotics, amoxicillin, a few Z-Packs, some Cipro that was probably expired, but better than nothing. Ibuprofen for fever, saline solution for wound cleaning, gauze tape splints. Not enough, but it'd have to do. Out there in the dark, Homie could feel it. They weren't alone, like at all. Because standing in the corner of his small cabin taking up way too much space was a mother who weighed probably 600 pounds and could tear him apart without breaking a sweat. But she wasn't threatening. She was just watching, waiting, trusting him with the most important things in her world. "Okay," Marcus said, looking at her. "I need to hurt them a little to help them. Understand? It's gonna hurt, they're gonna cry, but I'm trying to save them." She stared at him. He had no idea if she understood. "Here we go." Marcus started with the smallest one, the one with the broken arm. Most critical. He cleaned the wound site, which had become a festering mess. The little one cried out a sound that was eerily human, and the mother moved forward, instinctively protective. "It's okay," Marcus said, not looking at her, keeping his hand steady. I know it hurts, but we have to clean it." He worked methodically. Clean the wound. Apply antibiotic ointment. Wrap it. Splint the arm properly. Force some water down with dissolved ibuprofen. Then, oral antibiotics crushed up and mixed with honey, because there was no way this kid was swallowing pills. The mother watched every movement. Her eyes never left her baby. 1 down, 2 to go. The second one, the one with the wire cuts, woke up when Marcus started cleaning the wounds. It tried to pull away, whimpering. The mother made a soothing sound, low and rumbling, and the kid settled a little. Marcus worked as fast as he could, trying to be gentle but thorough. These wounds were deep infected, full of debris. He flushed them with saline, packed them with antibiotic ointment, wrapped them tight. "You're doing good," he told the kid. "Almost done." The third one, the biggest, was the most alert and the most scared. When Marcus approached it, bared its teeth small but still sharp. The mother barked something, a sharp sound, and the kid backed down, but didn't look happy about it. "Yeah, I get it," Marcus said. "You don't know me. I'm scary. But check it out. I'm trying to help your siblings. Yeah. Same deal for you." He showed his hands, moved slowly, narrated everything he did. "Gonna look at your leg. See where that wire got you. Not gonna hurt you unless I have to." The kid let him examine the wound. Bad, but not as bad as the others. Still infected, still needed treatment, but it'd heal easier. Marcus cleaned it, dressed it, got some medicine into the kid. By the time he was done with all 3, it was past noon, and he was exhausted. His back hurt from bending over, his hands were shaking from adrenaline come down, and he needed coffee so bad he could taste it. But the kids were stable. Fevers still high, but they'd come down with the meds. Wounds cleaned and dressed. Hydration started. He'd been forcing water into them all morning. They were sleeping now, piled together on his couch under a mountain of blankets. The mother hadn't moved from her corner. She'd watched everything, made sounds when her babies cried, but never interfered. Now she looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read. "They're gonna be okay," Marcus said. He didn't know if it was true, but he said it anyway. "Fever should break in a day or 2. Wounds will take longer, but they should heal clean if we keep them dressed and get antibiotics into them." The mother made a sound, soft, almost like a sigh. Relief, maybe. Marcus realized she probably hadn't slept in days, hadn't eaten, been watching over her dying kids, scared and helpless. "You need rest too," he said, "and food. I'll make something." He went to his kitchen, which was really just a corner with a propane stove and a mini fridge that ran off solar when the sun was out, and started cooking. Rice beans, some canned vegetables. Not fancy, but filling. He made a huge pot, figuring a creature that size needed a lot of calories. When it was ready, he dished out a bowl for himself and pushed the whole pot toward where the mother was sitting. She looked at it, looked at him, looked at her sleeping kids. "Eat," Marcus said. "They're okay for now. You need to keep your strength up." She reached for the pot tentatively, like she thought it might bite her, lifted it, sniffed, then started eating straight from the pot, using her massive hands to scoop food into her mouth. No manners, but Marcus wasn't about to judge. He'd seen people eat in the ER after days without food. Manners went out the window when you were starving. He ate his bowl, standing up, watching her, watching the kids. This was insane. He was standing in his cabin with a family of Bigfoot's big feet. Whatever, treating them for infections and making them rice and beans like this was normal. Like this was just another Tuesday. Diana, if you're watching this, Marcus thought you were right. About everything. I should have believed you. When the mother finished eating, she set down the pot and looked at him. Really looked at him. And something passed between them, something that didn't need words. Understanding, trust, gratitude. Something shifted in that moment for real, for real. Marcus wasn't alone anymore. Hadn't been truly alone since Diana died, not like this. He had purpose again. Responsibility. Someone needed him, and he was helping, and it felt right in a way nothing had felt right in 2 years. You can stay, he told her. As long as you need. We'll get them healthy, get them strong, then you can go back to whatever normal is for you. She made that humming sound. He chose to believe it meant yes. That night, Marcus slept in his chair by the fire, while the mother curled up on the floor next to the couch where her babies slept. Every few hours, he'd wake up, check on the kids, give them medicine, force water into them. The mother watched him every time, never fully asleep, always vigilant. By morning, the smallest one's fever had broken. It opened its eyes, looked around with something close to clarity, and made a small sound. The mother scrambled over, touched its face, made soothing noises. The baby looked at Marcus, seemed to recognize him as the one who'd helped, and didn't flinch away. Progress. Days started blending together in the cabin time, marked not by clocks, but by medicine schedules and wound changes and small victories that Marcus documented in his notebook, like he was charting patients on rounds. Day 1. All 3 fevers present, wounds actively draining. Prognosis guarded. Day 2. Smallest patient fever broke overnight. More alert. Taking fluids better. He was back in nurse mode, and honestly, it felt good. The mother, Marcus, started calling her Sage in his head because she had these grayish streaks in her dark fur that reminded him of the herb never left the cabin those first 3 days. She stayed close to her kids occasionally, eating what Marcus put in front of her, sometimes stepping outside for a few minutes, but always rushing back in like she was afraid they'd disappear if she wasn't watching. Man was living in a one-room cabin with a family of cryptids cooking beans and rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because that's what he had in bulk, changing bandages on creatures that shouldn't exist. And somehow, this had become his normal. The universe really did say, "Bet, let's make this man's life weird as hell." The kids healed at different rates. The smallest one, Marcus called him Pip, because he made these little peeping sounds when he was hungry, bounced back fastest. By day 3, his fever was completely gone, and he was trying to sit up on his own. His broken arm was still splintered, and would be for weeks, but the infection at the break site had responded well to antibiotics. Kid had good genetics or something because he went from death's door to alert and curious in 72 hours. The middle one, a female Marcus named Willow, because of her reddish fur that reminded him of willow bark, took longer. Her wire wounds were deep, had cut through muscle, and she'd lost blood. She spent most of the first week sleeping, only waking up to drink water or eat the mashed-up food Marcus prepared. But by day 5, her fever finally broke, and by day 6, she was watching him with those dark, intelligent eyes that made him wonder what she was thinking. The biggest one, the male Marcus called Bear, because of his size and attitude, was the most challenging. Not because his wounds were worse, they weren't, but because he didn't trust Marcus at all. Every time Marcus approached to check his leg, Bear would tense up, make low warning sounds, bare his teeth. Sage would bark at him that same sharp command sound, and Bear would back down, but never looked happy about it. "Listen, man," Marcus told him on day 4, sitting on the floor at a safe distance. "I get it. You don't know me. Strange human coming at you with sharp objects and medicine that tastes like ass. But check it, your siblings are getting better because they let me help. You want to keep limping around with that leg getting worse, or you want to heal up?" Bear just stared at him with a teenager's perfect expression of skeptical hostility. Dude was out here trying to reason with a Bigfoot kid and getting the same attitude human kids give their parents. Some shit's universal. But eventually, Bear's leg hurt enough that he let Marcus treat it. By day 7, all 3 kids were fever-free, taking food regularly and starting to move around the cabin, which created a whole new set of problems because Marcus's cabin was not designed for 4 Bigfoots and 1 human. Pip liked to explore everything, getting into Marcus's supply boxes with his one good arm, pulling out books and examining them like he was trying to figure out what they were for. He'd sit there turning pages with surprising gentleness, making soft sounds. Once Marcus found him with an old photo album, pictures of Marcus and Diana from before everything went wrong. Pip was looking at the photos with intense concentration, like he understood he was seeing something important. "That's my wife," Marcus said quietly, sitting next to him. "Diana. She died." He didn't know why he was telling this to a Bigfoot child who probably didn't understand English. "She would have loved meeting you guys. Would have thought this whole thing was the coolest shit ever." Pip looked up at him, then back at the photo. He touched Diana's face in the picture with one gentle finger, then looked at Marcus again, made a soft, questioning sound. "Yeah," Marcus said. "I miss her too." Willow was quieter, more observant. She'd watch Marcus cook, watch him tend the fire, watch him do his daily routines. Sometimes she'd try to help in her own way, handing him things he needed before he asked, or arranging his medical supplies in a neater order than he'd left them. She was thoughtful, careful, the kind of kid who paid attention to everything. Bear stayed suspicious, but was warming up slowly. By day 10, he let Marcus check his leg without complaint. By day 12, he was actually following Marcus around the cabin like he was trying to figure out how everything worked. The kid was smart, curious once he got past the distrust. He'd watch Marcus use tools, hammer, saw, screwdriver with intense focus, like he was memorizing techniques. Sage watched her kids heal and started to relax. The constant tension in her shoulders eased. She began leaving the cabin for longer periods, coming back with things, moss-specific plants, once a rabbit she'd caught, that she cleaned and offered to Marcus. He cooked it, shared it with everyone. The meat went fast. The big mama wasn't playing around. Baby ate first every damn time. Whenever they ate, Sage made sure her kids got their portions before she took anything. Even when Marcus could tell she was hungry, and something her size was probably always hungry, she waited, made sure they were fed, then ate whatever was left. Marcus started cooking bigger portions, making sure there was enough that Sage got a full meal too. They developed routines. Marcus would wake up at dawn, get the fire going, make coffee. Sage would already be awake. He suspected she never fully slept, just dozed while staying alert. He'd check the kids' wounds, change bandages, distribute medicine. Then breakfast, usually oatmeal with honey and whatever dried fruit he had. The kids loved honey. Pip would eat his portion, then try to sneak more when he thought Marcus wasn't looking. Afternoons were for healing and rest. Marcus would read, the kids would play quiet games with each other, gentle wrestling, stacking objects, examining anything new. Marcus let them explore. Sage would sit near the window watching outside, always vigilant. Evenings, Marcus cooked dinner. Rice and beans was the standard, sometimes with canned vegetables, mixed in occasionally, supplemented with whatever Sage brought back from her foraging. They'd eat together, this weird little family unit that had formed out of desperation and chance. At night, Marcus slept in his chair or on the floor, giving up his couch permanently to the kids. Sage curled up nearby, massive and warm. Sometimes Marcus would wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. to check on everyone, and he'd find Sage already awake watching. Their eyes would meet in the darkness, and something unspoken would pass between them. "We're okay. Everyone's safe. Get some sleep." 2 weeks in, Marcus had to make a supply run. He was low on everything: propane, coffee, food, medical supplies. He'd been stretching what he had, but you can't stretch nothing, and he was getting close to nothing. "I have to go to town," he told Sage. "Need supplies, food, medicine. Gonna be gone most of the day." She looked at him, then at her kids, then back at him. Made a low, worried sound. "I know, but I'll come back. Promise." Marcus grabbed a piece of paper, drew a simple picture. His truck, the road town, then the road again, and his cabin. Pointed to the sun, moved his finger across the paper, showing time passing, then pointed at himself and the cabin. "I leave. I come back." Sage stared at the drawing. Marcus had no idea if she understood, but she made that humming sound. He chose to believe it meant okay. "Keep the fire going. There's food in the cabinet. Don't let the kids go outside, those men might still be around." He'd told her about the men who'd come before, the ones in the unmarked truck. She'd understood that her whole body had tensed up, and she'd gathered her kids close. Marcus grabbed his truck keys, his wallet, his list, stepped outside into late December cold. The Tacoma started after only 3 tries, not bad for sitting idle for 2 weeks in freezing temperatures. He looked back at this cabin, saw Sage standing in the window watching him, raised his hand in a wave. She raised hers back. The drive down the mountain was slow ice on the road, snow in the ruts. Took him 2 hours to reach Marble Mount. The town looked the same as always, small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone and strangers stand out. Marcus parked in front of the general store, grabbed his list, headed inside. Same checkout girl with pink hair. She looked up, did a double take. "Marcus, holy shit, dude. We thought you died or something. It's been like a month." "Been busy," Marcus said. "Busy doing what? There's nothing up there but trees and snow." She started scanning his items. Rice beans, oatmeal coffee, propane, first aid supplies. "You stockpiling for the apocalypse or something?" "Something like that." She rang up his order, chattering about town gossip Marcus didn't care about. Then she lowered her voice. "Hey, those guys came back. The ones looking for the injured bear. They were asking about you specifically. Wanted to know how often you come to town, if you'd seen anything weird." Marcus's stomach tightened. "What did you tell them?" "Told them, I don't know shit about your business, and they can fuck off with their fake-ass Forest Service badges. Those weren't real rangers, Marcus. I looked them up. No record of any wildlife recovery unit operating in this area. They say what they really wanted." She shook her head. "Nah, but they were intense about it. Real intense. One of them showed me a photo on his phone, grainy as hell, but it looked like, I don't know, man. Something big. Something weird." She looked at him. "You haven't seen anything up there, right? Like anything strange?" Marcus kept his face neutral. "Just deer and squirrels. Same as always." "Right." She didn't believe him. Marcus could tell, but she wasn't going to push it. "Well, be careful. Those guys gave me creepy vibes." He paid, loaded his truck, made one more stop at the hardware store for extra tarps and rope, then headed back up the mountain. The whole drive he kept checking his mirrors. No one followed, but that didn't mean no one was watching. When he got back to the cabin, Sage met him at the door. She'd heard the truck coming, was ready to bolt with her kids if it wasn't him. The relief on her face when she saw it was Marcus was unmistakable. "Told you I'd come back," he said, hauling supplies inside. The kids mobbed him like he'd been gone for months instead of hours. Pip tugged at his coat, chattering excitedly. Willow helped carry the lighter bags inside. Even Bear came over, did that thing teenagers do, where they pretend they don't care, but clearly do. Yeah, I missed you guys too," Marcus said, trying not to smile and failing. That night, Marcus told Sage about the men. Drew pictures again, truck men looking for something. Pointed at her and the kids. She understood. Her whole body went tense, protective. She made a sound like a low growl. "I know, but they don't know you're here. We're safe for now." He hoped that was true. Over the next week, the kids continued healing. Pip's arm was knitting well. Marcus could feel the bone setting properly through the splint. Willow's wounds had closed, pink new skin visible under her fur. Bear's leg was almost back to normal, just a little stiffness he worked out by pacing around the cabin. They were getting stronger, which meant they were getting more active, which meant the cabin was getting way too small. These were wild creatures, cooped up in a one-room space, and you could feel the restlessness building. They needed to go outside, run around, be Bigfoots. But Marcus was scared to let them out. Those men were still around somewhere. Still looking. On day 19, Marcus made a decision. "Tonight," he told Sage. "We'll go out tonight. Dark, harder to see. They need exercise, fresh air. We'll stay close, stay quiet, but they need this." After sunset, when the woods were fully dark, Marcus opened the cabin door. The kids rushed out immediately, so excited they practically vibrated. They ran around the clearing, playing in the snow, wrestling with each other, making happy sounds that echoed through the trees. Sage stood on the porch next to Marcus, watching her kids play. She made a sound, deep, rumbling content. Marcus looked at her. "They're going to be okay, you know. They're strong. They're fighters." She looked down at him, made that humming sound. They stood there for maybe an hour, watching the kids burn off weeks of pent-up energy. Pip climbed a tree, one-armed, showing off. Willow made snow angels, well, snow Bigfoots, but close enough. Bear found a fallen log and started practicing what looked like fighting moves, striking it with controlled hits. "Your kids are good kids," Marcus said. "You raised them right." Sage put one massive hand on his shoulder, gentle, careful not to use her full strength. It was the first time she'd touched him deliberately, and Marcus felt the weight of it, not just physical weight, but meaning. Trust. Friendship. Family. No cap tears were flowing. Marcus didn't cry much anymore. Thought he'd used up all his tears when Diana died. But standing there in the snow, watching Bigfoot kids play while their mother's hand rested on his shoulder, he felt his eyes get hot. This weird, impossible thing had happened. He'd been chosen by circumstance, by Sage, by the universe to save these kids. And he'd done it. They were alive, healing, playing. Diana would have been so happy to see this. They went inside after the kids started slowing down, getting tired. Everyone slept hard that night. The kids, because they'd burned energy. Sage, because her babies were happy and healthy. Marcus, because he felt more at peace than he had in 2 years. 3 days before Christmas. Not that Marcus was tracking holidays, but his calendar watch said December 22nd. Something changed. Sage started acting different, restless. She'd go to the door, look out, make low sounds. She'd check her kids, obsessively touching their faces, examining their wounds, even though they were healed. Marcus recognized the behavior. He'd seen it 1,000 times in the ER. "You need to leave soon," he said. "Don't you need to get back to your family, your clan, whatever you call it?" Sage looked at him, made a sound that went up at the end, a question. "It's okay. They're ready. You're ready. You should go home." But she didn't move, kept watching out the window like she was waiting for something. That night, Marcus woke up to Sage making urgent sounds. He sat up instantly, alert. "What? What's wrong?" She was at the window, peering out into darkness. The kids were awake too, clustered together, making nervous sounds. Marcus went to the window, looked out. At first he didn't see anything, just snow and shadows and trees. Then the shadows moved. There were Bigfoots in his clearing. A lot of them. Marcus counted maybe 15, 20, could have been more. Different sizes, different shades of fur. They stood in a loose circle around the cabin, completely silent, just watching. "Oh, shit," Marcus breathed. "Your family." Sage made that humming sound. Yes. She'd been waiting for them. They'd come for her, for the kids. Okay. Okay. Marcus's heart was pounding. This was it. Time to say goodbye. Sage gathered her kids. They looked at Marcus, then at their mother, then at the door. Pip came over, wrapped his good arm around Marcus's leg in what was unmistakably a hug. Made a sad sound. "I know, buddy. Gonna miss you too." Marcus knelt down, hugged him back. "But you gotta go with your mom. Your family's waiting." Willow came next, touched his face gently, made her own soft sound. Bear, standoffish, suspicious. Bear actually reached out and touched Marcus's shoulder. Brief, awkward, but genuine. "You guys take care of each other, yeah? And Bear, listen to your mom." Sage moved to the door, her kids following. But she stopped, turned back, looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then she did something that made Marcus's brain short-circuit all over again. She bowed. Actually, bowed. A deliberate lowering of her massive head, showing respect, gratitude, recognition. Marcus bowed back. Seemed like the right thing to do. Then Sage opened the door and led her kids outside. The other Bigfoots parted to let them through, and Marcus watched as the family reunion happened. Other Bigfoots, touching the kids, examining them, making those rumbling sounds. One old male with silver fur approached Sage, touched her face. Her father, maybe, or an elder. They communicated in sounds and gestures Marcus couldn't understand, but could feel the meaning of anyway. He stood on his porch in the cold, watching. Several of the Bigfoots looked at him. Not threatening, just acknowledging, seeing him. One of them, a female with lighter fur, approached slowly. Stopped about 10 feet away. Set something down in the snow. Backed away. After they left, melting into the forest like they'd never been there, Marcus went to see what she'd left. It was a bundle of plants carefully arranged. Herbs, he recognized some he used in his medicine. But also things he didn't know, roots and leaves and bark he'd never seen before. Medicine from their world, given as payment, as thanks. Marcus picked it up, cradled it. Went back inside his suddenly way too quiet cabin. Sat down and just existed for a while, processing everything that had happened over the past 3 weeks. He'd saved 3 Bigfoot kids. Earned the trust of their mother. Been acknowledged by a whole clan of creatures that weren't supposed to exist. And now they were gone, and he was alone again. But not the same kind of alone as before. Christmas came and went. Marcus didn't celebrate. Hadn't celebrated since Diana died, but he marked the day in his notebook. December 25th. Kids gone for 3 days. Cabin feels empty. Made too much coffee, no one to share it with. Started organizing the herb bundle they left. Some kind of willow bark derivative, maybe. Need to research. The silence was different now. Before Sage and the kids, the silence had been dead empty, the kind that pressed down on you and made you forget what your own voice sounded like. Now the silence felt pregnant with possibility, like the forest was alive and watching and waiting to see what Marcus would do next. He fell back into his routines, but they felt hollow. Chop wood, but he didn't need as much without a family of Bigfoots to keep warm. Cook breakfast, but the portions were small and sad. Read books, but he kept getting distracted looking up at the couch where 3 kids used to pile under blankets. Dude was out here missing Bigfoot children like they were his own kids that moved away for college. Some emotional shit. But it was true. Marcus had gotten attached, had let himself care about something again after 2 years of not caring about anything, and now that thing was gone and it hurt. Different than losing Diana, nothing would ever hurt like that, but it still hurt. New Year's came. Marcus poured himself a whiskey at midnight, raised his glass to the empty cabin. "To the weirdest fucking year of my life," he said. Drank alone. Went to bed. January crawled by. Marcus made his supply runs, restocked, avoided conversation. The pink-haired checkout girl asked him once if he was okay. "You look different," she said. "Like sad different." "I'm always sad," Marcus replied. "Yeah, but this is new sad. Old sad is different from new sad." She wasn't wrong, but Marcus didn't have the energy to explain, so he just paid and left. The gifts started appearing in mid-January. Marcus woke up one morning, went outside for his usual check of the clearing, and found something on the old stump near the tree line. A perfectly stacked pile of smooth stones arranged in a little cairn. Next to it, a bundle of those same medicinal plants from before. His heart did something complicated in his chest. He walked over, examined the offering. Fresh left, recently, probably during the night. He looked toward the trees, half expecting to see someone watching. Nothing visible, but he could feel it. That presence. "You guys checking on me?" he called out. His voice echoed, got no response. But somehow he knew he was being heard. He left his own offering that night. Smoked jerky, he'd made some dried apples, a jar of the honey that Pip had loved. Set it on the stump, went inside, watched from the window. Just after midnight, a shadow detached from the trees. Too dark to see clearly, but the shape was unmistakable. They took the food, left more stones. This became the new routine. Every few days, an offering would appear. Sometimes food berries, even though it was winter, chunks of honeycomb, once an entire deer haunch that must have weighed 40 pounds. Sometimes objects interesting rocks, bird feathers, pieces of antler, carved with what looked like deliberate marks. Marcus would accept them, leave his own offerings in return. He was being cared for. The clan sage's family, whoever they were, had decided he was worth protecting, worth feeding. It was humbling and weird, and made Marcus feel less alone. But it also made him nervous, because if the Bigfoots were coming close enough to leave offerings, that meant they were visible, trackable. And those men in the unmarked truck were still out there, somewhere still looking. February brought heavy snow and validation of Marcus's concerns. He was out checking his trail cameras. Yeah, he'd put them back up. Couldn't help his curiosity when he found boot prints. Fresh ones. Human. Large, probably a man's size, 11 or 12. They came up the old logging road, veered off into the forest, toward one of the game trails Marcus sometimes used. Someone was in his woods. Someone who wasn't supposed to be here. Marcus followed the tracks carefully. They led about half a mile into a spot where the forest opened up into a small clearing, and there, partially hidden under camo netting, was equipment. Camera traps, the expensive kind with motion sensors and night vision, some kind of audio recording setup, and something else that made Marcus's blood run cold. A trap. Not a bear trap, something bigger. Steel jaws, heavy chain trigger plate, designed for something large, something that walked on 2 legs. "These motherfuckers," Marcus breathed. "They were hunting. Actually hunting Bigfoots like they were animals to be captured and studied or sold or whatever the hell these people did." He looked at the setup more carefully. There was bait, a haunch of meat starting to rot, and around the trap drag marks in the snow. Something had approached, gotten close, but not close enough. Smart. The Bigfoots knew a trap when they saw one. Marcus made a decision. He pulled out his knife, cut the cables on the cameras, stomped on them for good measure, found the trap's trigger mechanism, jammed it with a stick so it wouldn't close, kicked snow and debris over the whole setup. Then he pissed on it because petty felt good sometimes. He followed the boot prints back toward the road, staying careful, staying quiet. They led to tire tracks that same government-style truck from before. The tracks were a day old, maybe 2. They'd been here recently, would probably be back to check their equipment. Marcus needed to warn Sage. Warn the clan. But how? They hadn't made direct contact since the reunion. He only knew they were around because of the offerings. That night, instead of leaving food on the stump, Marcus left something different. He drew a picture crude but clear. Human figures with guns. Traps. Danger. He drew a circle around his cabin, made it dark and heavy. Safe zone. Don't go beyond this. Next morning, the picture was gone. In its place, a single large handprint pressed deep into the snow. Message received. For the next week, Marcus saw no offerings, no signs of Bigfoot activity. They'd gone to ground, stayed hidden. Good. Safe. But the men came back. Marcus heard the truck before he saw it, that distinctive diesel rumble coming up the mountain. He checked the time, 2 p.m., middle of the afternoon. They weren't trying to be subtle anymore. He grabbed his .45, chambered a round, stuck it in his waistband, went outside, stood on his porch, waited. The truck pulled into his clearing. Same 2 men as before, tall buzzcut and his shorter, stocky partner. They got out, and this time they had rifles. Not hunting rifles, tactical ones. Black professional, the kind that said, "We're not here to play." "Afternoon, Marcus," Buzzcut said. Used his first name like they were friends. "We need to talk. Don't recall giving you my name. Public records. You own this property. Marcus Webb, 52, former ER nurse at Seattle General. Moved up here 2 years ago after your wife died. Our condolences." The casual invasion of his privacy made Marcus's jaw clench. "What do you want?" "You know what we want. You've seen them. We know you've seen them." "Seen who?" Stocky partner spoke up. "Don't play dumb. Our equipment was sabotaged. Cameras destroyed, trap disabled. That was you. Your equipment was trespassing on my land." "This is federal forest land," Buzzcut said. "You own the cabin and a half-acre around it. Everything else fair game." "So you're federal, private contractors working with federal oversight. Show me credentials." They didn't. Just looked at each other, that unspoken communication that said, "We don't have to prove shit to you." "Here's the situation," Buzzcut said. "We're tracking an endangered species. Very rare, very valuable for research purposes. We have evidence that a family group is operating in this area. Female approximately 8 to 9 feet tall, 3 juveniles. You're the only person living within 15 miles. You've been here for weeks without coming to town for supplies, which suggests you're feeding more than just yourself." Marcus kept his face neutral. "I stock up. Winter prep. We checked your trash last time we were here. Found enough food waste for at least 5 individuals. Rice beans bones from large game animals processed and cleaned. But you're not a hunter. Never applied for tags, don't own a hunting rifle." These fuckers had gone through his garbage. Marcus felt violation crawl up his spine. "Maybe I've taken up cooking." "Marcus," Buzzcut's voice went harder. "We can make this easy or difficult. Tell us where they are and we'll compensate you. Generously. 6 figures easy. You could move back to civilization, start over, leave this hermit bullshit behind." "Not interested." "Or," Stocky said, "we can make life very hard for you. File complaints, get inspectors up here checking if your cabin meets code. Report you for illegal wildlife interaction. Make it so you can't live here anymore." "That a threat?" "It's reality," Buzzcut said. "We're gonna find them regardless, with or without your help. Question is whether you want to profit from it or be an obstacle we remove." Marcus looked at both of them, saw them for what they were. Mercenaries, poachers, the kind of people who'd cage something intelligent and aware for money. The kind who'd separate a mother from her kids, lock them in labs, run experiments. "Get off my property," Marcus said quietly. "Marcus, now." They stared at him. Buzzcut's hand drifted toward his rifle. Marcus didn't move, didn't flinch, kept his hand near his waistband. The message was clear. You can try, but someone's dying today, might be all of us. Stocky touched Buzzcut's arm. "Not worth it. Not yet." They backed toward their truck, got in. Buzzcut leaned out the window. "You're making a mistake. We'll be back. And next time we won't ask nicely." The truck drove off, leaving deep ruts in Marcus's clearing. Marcus stood there for a long time after they left, adrenaline slowly draining. His hands were shaking. He'd just made enemies of people with guns and no ethics, and probably some kind of official backing, even if it was shady. "Well," he said to the empty clearing. That went sideways real quick. That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He sat by his window gun in his lap, watching, waiting. Around 2 a.m., he saw movement at the tree line, a figure massive standing in shadow. Sage. Marcus opened his door slowly, stepped out onto the porch. "Hey," he called softly. She didn't approach, but she made a sound. Low questioning. "Yeah, we got problems. Those men, they're not gonna stop. They're hunting you, hunting your kids." Marcus felt helpless, frustrated. "I don't know what to do. I can't protect you if they come with serious numbers. It's just me." Sage made another sound. Then she gestured a sweeping motion toward the forest, then toward Marcus, then back to the forest. It took him a moment to understand. "You want me to come with you? Into the forest?" She gestured again. Same motion. Clear invitation. Now, that humming sound. Yes. Marcus looked back at his cabin, looked at Sage, made a decision that Diana would have made in a heartbeat. "All right, let me grab some shit." He went inside, threw essentials into his hiking pack first aid kit, fire starter knife, water bottles, some food, extra clothes, grabbed his pistol, extra magazines, left a note on the table just in case. "Gone hiking, back when I'm back." Oh, he locked the door behind him, knowing he might never see the cabin again. Followed Sage into the darkness of the trees. They walked for hours. Sage moved silently despite her size, navigating terrain in complete darkness like she had night vision built in. Marcus followed using his headlamp on its lowest setting, stumbling occasionally, but keeping pace. They went way deeper than Marcus had ever explored. Up ridges through dense forest across frozen streams. Finally, just before dawn, they reached a place Marcus never would have found on his own. A narrow valley between two steep ridges, sheltered from wind, hidden from above by old-growth canopy. And there, in that hidden valley, was the clan. Marcus stopped at the edge, staring. There had to be 40-50 Bigfoots. Different sizes, different ages. Some huge, some small, some in between. They'd built shelters not sophisticated, just lean-tos and rock overhangs, made more comfortable with moss and branches. There were fire pits with embers still glowing, food storage areas with meat hanging to cure. This was a camp, a home. "Holy shit," Marcus whispered. The clan noticed him immediately. Several of the larger males moved forward, positioning themselves between Marcus and the others. Protective, suspicious. One of them, massive, probably 9.5 feet tall, with fur so dark it was almost black, made a deep rumbling sound that was definitely a challenge. Sage barked something sharp. The big male barked back. They had a whole conversation in sounds and gestures that Marcus couldn't follow, but could sense the meaning of. She was vouching for him. The male wasn't sure. Others joined in a whole debate happening in Bigfoot language. Then Marcus saw them. Pip, Willow, and Bear, emerging from one of the shelters. The kids saw him and made excited sounds. Pip ran over his arm, was out of the splint-heeled functional, and grabbed Marcus in a hug. Willow and Bear came too, surrounding him, clearly happy to see him. The big male watched how the kids reacted to Marcus. His expression changed. He approached slowly, stopped in front of Marcus. Looked down at him with eyes that were disturbingly intelligent. Made a sound that went down in pitch. A question. "I'm Marcus," Marcus said, feeling ridiculous introducing himself to a Bigfoot. "I helped Sage's kids, and now there are bad humans hunting your family. I'm here to, I don't know, help if I can." The male stared at him. Then he did something unexpected. He reached out one massive hand, palm up. An offering. A handshake. Maybe Marcus put his hand in the Bigfoot's palm. It was like putting his hand in a catcher's mitt made of warm leather. The male closed his fingers gently, gave one careful shake, then let go. Something passed between them in that moment. Not words, but understanding. The clan accepted him, just like that. Because Sage trusted him, because her kids loved him, because he'd proven himself through action, not words. They made space for him near one of the fires, gave him food, some kind of roasted meat, root vegetables, berries. Marcus sat among them eating, watching the community function. He saw young Bigfoots playing, learning from adults. Saw elders teaching skills, plant identification tool use, what looked like tracking techniques. Saw parents caring for their children with the same tenderness and frustration as any human parent. This wasn't just a clan. This was a culture, a society. And those men wanted to capture them, cage them, study them like animals, over Marcus's dead body. He spent 3 days in the valley, learning, observing, planning. The clan communicated with him through gestures, demonstrations, drawings in the dirt. They showed him their territory, vast, carefully managed with specific areas for hunting, foraging, water access. They showed him their medicines plants Marcus recognized, and many he didn't use in combinations he'd never considered. The old male Marcus learned his name was something like Stone. Conveyed through gestures of strength and permanence was their leader. He'd been watching humans for 50 years, knew their patterns, their dangers. He showed Marcus evidence of previous encounters, old steel traps they'd dismantled, pieces of camera equipment, once a tranquilizer dart pulled from a young male's leg. They'd been hunted before. They knew how to hide, but the hunters were getting more sophisticated, more persistent. "We need to make them leave," Marcus said to Stone, drawing in the dirt. "Make them think you're not here anymore. Make them give up." Stone made a questioning sound. "Give me a few days. I have an idea." On the 4th morning, Marcus hiked back to his cabin. The trek took 6 hours. He'd memorized the route, marked it subtly, with natural signs only he would recognize. The cabin was untouched. No new truck visits, no signs of entry. Good. He made coffee, sat down with his laptop and its spotty satellite internet, and started working. First he found environmental groups, wildlife protection organizations, journalists who covered poaching and illegal wildlife trade. Started sending anonymous tips. Private contractors operating in North Cascades, attempting to capture endangered species without permits. Traps set on federal land. Possible violations of Endangered Species Act. Second, he contacted the actual Forest Service, filed formal complaints about unauthorized trapping on federal land, included GPS coordinates of where he'd found the equipment. Third, he made noise. Posted on social media accounts he set up anonymously about suspicious activity in the Cascades. Blurry photos of the destroyed trap equipment, speculation about illegal poaching operations. Let the internet do what the internet does, amplify and investigate. Within 48 hours, his tips gained traction. An environmental blogger picked up the story, published an article about mysterious poaching operation in pristine wilderness. A local news station sent a reporter to investigate. The Forest Service announced they were looking into unauthorized activity in the area. The pressure was building. Marcus's phone, which barely worked, suddenly worked well enough to get a call. Unknown number. He answered. "You're making a lot of noise, Marcus." Buzzcut's voice tight with anger. "Don't know what you're talking about." "Bullshit. You know exactly what you're doing. You're trying to shut down our operation." "Your illegal operation, you mean?" "We have authorization." "From who? Show me paperwork. Show me permits. Show me anything that says you're allowed to trap endangered wildlife on federal land." Marcus let his voice go cold. "You can't because you don't have it. You're poachers, criminals, and now people know." Silence on the line. Then, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The call disconnected. Marcus sat there, heart pounding. He'd just escalated from obstacle to enemy. These guys weren't going to back off now, they were going to come at him hard. He had maybe 24 hours before they made their move. Marcus spent that day preparing. Loaded his gun-packed supplies, wrote down everything he knew about the poachers and their operation, sealed it in an envelope addressed to the local Forest Service office. If something happened to him, someone would know the truth. Then he hiked back to the valley to the clan, told them through gestures and drawings, "They're coming. Soon. We need to be ready." Stone gathered the clan leaders, 5 of them, including Sage. They had a council, deliberated. Finally, Stone made a decision. He gestured, "We fight." "No," Marcus said. "No fighting. You win by disappearing. Make them find nothing. Make them look crazy for insisting you're here." But Stone shook his head. Gestured again, more emphatic. "Protect territory. Protect family." Marcus understood. They'd been running, hiding for generations. They were tired of it. Tired of being hunted in their own home. This was their land. They weren't leaving. "Okay," Marcus said. "Okay. Then we fight smart." That night Marcus and the clan prepared. They didn't have weapons, well they did, but not the kind humans used. They had strength knowledge of terrain numbers. And they had surprise. Marcus drew up a plan. "They'll come to my cabin first looking for me. They'll be expecting 1 human, maybe armed. They won't be expecting 50 Bigfoots." The clan listened, understood. Stone assigned roles. Scouts to watch the approach roads, fighters to position around the cabin, families with young children to stay in the valley hidden and safe. Everyone knew their job. Dawn came. The scouts returned with news truck approaching. 2 vehicles now, not one. At least 6 men, all armed. "This is it," Marcus said. He walked back to his cabin alone, deliberately leaving an obvious trail. Made coffee like it was a normal morning, sat on his porch, where he'd be visible. Waited. The trucks came. 6 men this time, including Buzzcut and Stocky. New faces too, all of them armed with serious rifles wearing tactical gear. They spread out as they approached professional formation. These weren't amateurs. "Marcus Webb," Buzzcut called out. "Come out. We just want to talk." "I'm right here," Marcus said from his porch. "Talk. Where are they?" "Where are who?" Buzzcut's patience snapped. He signaled his team. They rushed the cabin, grabbed Marcus before he could react, zip-tied his hands, pushed him to his knees. "Last chance," Buzzcut said, getting in Marcus's face. "Tell us where the Bigfoots are, or this gets ugly." Marcus smiled. Actually smiled. "You want to know where they are?" "Yeah." "Look up, asshole." Buzzcut looked up. All of them looked up. The Bigfoots were everywhere. In the trees, on the cabin roof, at the tree line surrounding the clearing. 40 of them, maybe more. Silent as ghosts, massive as mountains. Stone stood in front, 9.5 feet of controlled fury, with Sage beside him. One of the men raised his rifle. Stone roared an actual roar that echoed through the valley and made Marcus's bones vibrate. Every Bigfoot joined in a chorus of sound that was primal and terrifying and undeniable. The men froze. You could see the calculation happening: 6 humans with rifles versus 40-plus Bigfoots who could tear them apart. The math didn't work in their favor. "Stand down," Buzzcut said quietly to his team. Then louder to Stone, "We don't want trouble." Stone made a sound that was clearly Bigfoot for bullshit. "Marcus," Stocky said, voice shaking. "Call them off. We'll leave. We'll go. Just call them off." "They're not mine to call," Marcus said. "This is their home. You're the invaders." Stone took a step forward. The other Bigfoots followed. Advancing slowly, deliberately. The men backed toward their trucks, keeping their rifles up, but not firing. Firing would be suicide. "We have authorization," Buzzcut tried. "Federal oversight," Stone roared again. Picked up a boulder, something that had to weigh 300 pounds, and threw it at one of the trucks. It crushed the hood, totaled the engine. "Message clear. Your authority means nothing here." The men broke, piled into the remaining truck, drove off fast enough to kick up snow and gravel. Marcus watched them go, then looked at Stone. "Cut me loose." Stone used one claw carefully, precisely, to slice through the zip ties. Marcus stood, rubbed his wrists, looked around at the clan. "You guys know that was terrifying, right? Like objectively scary as hell." Pip came over, hugged him. Willow and Bear came too. The whole clan started making sounds, not threatening ones, now celebratory ones. They'd won, defended their home, sent the hunters running. Stone approached Marcus, put a massive hand on his shoulder, made a sound deep, resonant, meaningful. Then he bowed like Sage had bowed weeks ago. Respect, gratitude, recognition of an ally. Marcus bowed back. "Anytime, man. Anytime." The clan returned to their valley. Marcus stayed at his cabin, but it was different now. He wasn't alone. He was part of something. The clan checked on him regularly, left offerings. Sometimes young ones would sneak close to play near his clearing, and Marcus would leave toys he'd whittled from wood. The poachers never came back. A week later, Marcus saw a news article, private contracting firm under investigation for wildlife violations. A month after that, federal charges filed in illegal trapping operation. The men had been arrested, their operation shut down. Marcus printed the article, showed it to Stone next time he saw him. The big Bigfoot looked at it, didn't understand the words, but understood the meaning. Safe. Finally, safe. Spring came. The snow melted. Flowers bloomed in Marcus's clearing. He started a better garden, planted more than just potatoes. The clan taught him which wild plants were edible, which were medicinal. He taught them things too, how to treat wounds, how to recognize signs of infection, basic first aid. He was useful, had purpose, belonged. One morning in early May, Marcus woke to find something new on his porch. An envelope weathered, sealed with tree sap. Inside, a photo. It was old, faded, but clear enough. A young woman with dark hair and bright eyes smiling at the camera. Diana. He'd left the photo album in the cabin when the clan had visited. Pip must have taken the photo, kept it. Now they were returning it, but changed. The edges were decorated with tiny carvings, flowers, trees, birds. They'd made it beautiful, made it a memorial. Marcus sat on his porch holding the photo and cried. Good tears this time. Healing tears. She would have loved this, he said out loud. Would have loved all of you. Later that week, Marcus hiked to the valley. Found Sage, her kids, Stone, the whole clan. They were having some kind of celebration, spring arrival maybe, or just existence. Young ones playing adults, sharing food, elders telling stories through gesture and sound. Marcus sat down among them. Pip climbed into his lap, too big for lap-sitting, but doing it anyway. Willow leaned against his shoulder. Bear sat nearby, close enough to be part of the group, far enough to maintain teenage independence. Sage came over, sat next to Marcus. Made that humming sound he'd come to associate with contentment. Peace. Yeah, Marcus said. Me too. They sat there as the sun set, human and Bigfoot family, not by blood, but by choice. Marcus thought about everything that had led to this moment. Grief and loss and isolation, then desperation and trust and healing. Never had children of my own, he said softly, echoing words from a story that wasn't his, but felt true anyway. But for a while, for now, I'm family to someone who's not human, but needs love all the same. Stone looked at him, made a sound that rose at the end. A question. Marcus smiled. I believe in a mother's love, in protecting family no matter what they look like. That's real. That's the realest thing I know. The clan made sounds of agreement. In the fading light, surrounded by creatures that shouldn't exist, but did, Marcus finally felt at home. So what's the lesson here, right? It's about choosing compassion over fear, about having the courage to help when helping's scary, when it doesn't make sense, when everything in your brain screams, don't get involved. Marcus could have turned away, could have stayed isolated, let those kids die, kept his safe little bubble of grief and solitude. But he didn't. He opened the door literally and figuratively, let something impossible into his life and his heart, and it saved him just as much as he saved them. This whole thing's fiction. But ask yourself, would you open that door? Would you choose helping over hiding? Would you risk everything to save someone different, someone strange, someone the world says doesn't matter? That's the question, fam. That's always the question. Peace.